All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 2, our session 2 of Write a Romance with Last Chapter Press. I am Julie Stamps. I am an author, a mentor, a coach, a fuzzy sock collector. I also love baseball and volleyball, but most importantly, I am a co-owner of Last Chapter Press. And occasionally you'll hear me say LCP, which means Last Chapter Press. So just something to let you know what the acronym means. So last week we talked about who and where Last Chapter Press is. Tonight we're going to talk about, just for a couple moments, about the why. Why should you publish with Last Chapter Press? And here are the reasons. One, we're a traditional publisher. We do not charge authors for publishing their books. We foot the bill for editing, for covers, for formatting, for uploading, and so much more. You write the story. That's your job. Second, we offer a generous 50-50 split of royalties after advertising costs are deducted. We do the work for those advertising costs, but we share the expense. We have found that our authors' other books sell better when we're doing ads against their Last Chapter Press books. So it is a win-win situation. You just write the story. We offer a yearly one-on-one marketing call for mentoring with every contracted author to help develop their careers. You only write a story to get this benefit. We do quarterly trainings on topics like business money management, screenwriting, that one's actually coming up soon, social media tools, and ads. And you get this just for writing a story, one story. We'd love to have more, but one story. We also specialize in steamy romance in a variety of subgenres, including contemporary, paranormal, LGBTQIA, new adult, and so much more. We also accept sweet, but our focus is mainly on steamy. So you can write a story for Last Chapter Press, and we would love to be part of your journey as an author. So what we like to say is we are the choice for the authors who just want to write the bleeping book. So there are no apologies for us doing that or for saying that. We're passionate about what we offer, but today we're here to learn. So let's go ahead and get started. There is a lot of information to cover in this one. And today we're going to be looking at what you might consider for your romance's scenes. So how do you develop scenes? So scenes are like puzzle pieces. A scene is a small piece of a story. Put them all together and you see the whole picture. Scenes for me include circles and repetition moments. And these are two elements that I find really cement a connection for readers. And you'll see why coming up. So we're supposed to also learn about dialogue today. I had that in the newsletter, but after looking at all of the information for scenes, and it goes on for like 18 pages, I just think this is enough and I don't want to overwhelm you. That's not what we're here for. So you'll be able to find this session on our YouTube channel, and I will put the link into the chat if I can get the chat to come up here. Yep. I don't know. There we go. I'll open the chat. There we go. Okay. So the link to this will be on our YouTube channel as well. There we go. So those who are live, you're welcome to use the chat for questions. The information includes a solid scene worksheet that I'm going to be showing coming up from the Last Chapter Press Learning Library. And this is something that every Last Chapter Press author has access to. And basically, it's a library of all of these topics like dialogue and plotting and scene management and how to write a great sex scene. So all of these things are included in the library. And what we're doing with this particular series is just giving you a taste of it and some of the more important things that we feel are important for writing a romance. All right, I'm going to drop the link for that worksheet into the chat. So there, those that are live, they can go ahead and get it and follow along. So this sheet doesn't have to be filled out for every scene, but I find that if you use it for starting at least the starting scene of every chapter, that's a good benchmark to hit. So let's look at the sheet, then we'll dig into each component just a little bit more. All right, so it's stop share and let's find, I've got to find that sheet. Here we go. And share again. All righty. Which one? Right there. Okay. Wonderful. If you can't see it, can you let me know in the chat? But otherwise, I am going to move on. So this is the solid scene worksheet. And first thing that we would like to consider when we're writing a scene is which character's viewpoint are we going to use? We're not talking about perspective or POV, like you would talk about first person or third person, like I walked, I talked, I rocked for first person, he walked, he talked, he rocked for third person. What we're actually talking about is who is talking or who are we telling the story from, their perspective in this chapter. So in romance, it's usually the person with more stakes or the person who has more to lose who gets the viewpoint. If the main character is for example, I'm going to give you an example, of course, because I do that. If the main character is a grocery store owner and the health department is going to shut them down, you wouldn't tell the story from the viewpoint of a customer, most likely, because they don't have the same things to lose as the grocery store owner. And they just wouldn't feel the moment the same way as the owner. You'd want to see it from the owner's perspective to understand how angry or upset or resigned they are to what is happening. Perhaps this has been in their family for a very long time, and they're going to fight it. They're going to have some anger. So it's important to know which character's viewpoint you want to tell the story from, that particular scene. And remember, in romance, oftentimes we have some from each of the main characters' perspectives, whether it be a male and a female or same-sex couples. Each one usually goes back and forth, and we have kind of a dual POV, as we call it. All right, so let's go back. Or whoops, we're going to go down here. Purpose. So I'm going to go I'm going to read off of this and then we'll go through each one of them. So purpose, this is all about what is the point of the scene? What will happen to move the story forward? Setting, where will the scene happen? Tension, that sexual and emotional tension that drive a plot in a romance. And it also engages readers to keep them invested in what's going to happen. Are they? Aren't they? Are they? Aren't they? We also have internal and spoken dialogue, circles, which is something that I don't think I invented it, but I have solidified it as if this is in your romance, it's needed, definitely. Repetition moments. So this is a thought or a moment or a motif for each character, and I will explain what that is. Character development, which includes an arc. Emotions. There will be a body language sheet with that. And then at the very end, when I was going through my notes, I was like, nope, I want to add this one in too. So you get 2 sheets with that one. Sensory details, which is like your 5 senses, your hearing, your sight, your touch, your taste, your smell. We'll go over more of that. Action. So when you're starting to write a scene, it's good to think about what's going to be the peak action of my scene. What moment will readers feel the most? The next is it going to be a sex scene? And with that, have we met the stages of intimacy to get our characters to where they need to go? conflict. What struggles are we going to put into this scene? And lastly, an ending. So what are we going to put as the ending to keep a reader reading? All right, let's go back to the other. All right, next screen there. So that was a sheet, Virgo. All right, so we talked about the viewpoint a little bit. I did get that in there. And then we're going to talk about purpose. So when we're exploring what a scene means, the purpose is another element to look at. What has the reader learned, but what do they still need to know? What is some vital information, the purpose of that scene? Some of the common purposes that are to build suspense, make readers feel, or to react. It can also be for character introduction. Like if this is the first chapter, you're not going to go right into sex normally. Normally, some people do. It can also be for character development, getting to know a character, their quirks, their fears. We often use a scene as a purpose to establish a mood or the setting. We can have a purpose to be creating an incident, something that happens that'll change what the characters think or believe. After you've introduced the characters, you probably will have a purpose to intensify the conflict. You're going to want to ramp up the tension and move the story forward, giving tidbits of information to the readers, not just dumping everything on them. And finally, we have scenes that provide a climax. And I'm not talking about anything sexual. It's a point of no return. And we call this point in romance the dark moment. This is when we think that these two people, there's just no hope that they can be together. Everything is lost and they're not going to love. They're never going to have their happily ever after. But then we also have a scene that can be used for resolution. So when all the pieces fall into place and there is a happily ever after. So what is the purpose? Is the purpose to show somebody these characters? Or are you at the end of your story and the purpose is to have that happily ever after? You need to understand why this scene in your novel or your story is so important, it has a purpose. So now let's examine setting. So I love writing settings. That's just one of my favorite things. And I am forever telling when I edit, and I do edit usually the first story that somebody submits to Last Chapter Press, I edit myself because I want to see their skill level. How can I help them? What do they need? It's usually a really nice developmental edit. And so I usually will keep saying setting. Where am I? What's happening? I want to know what it looks like, how it feels. So we briefly talked about last week using a character as a setting, but how do you really show the visual setting? So here are 6 ways that you can determine the where and when of what's happening and how it will take place. Scale is the first one. So is it like towering mountains, towering buildings? One is going to scream country or landscape, and the other is going to scream city and hard, kind of like a not roughness, but masculine. The second way to show setting is through surprise. What is unique about it? What's different, odd, uncommon about the setting? This is usually really great to use when a character is outside of their element. So, for instance, you take a city girl, you plop her into the country. She's not probably going to know that dairy cows cross the roads and they're herded across, and it takes quite a while for all of them to get across. So, you cannot drive through them. They're going across the road. How is your character going to respond to that setting? Are they going to be annoyed? Are they going to be interested? They've never seen cows before. These are all things that writing a romance scene, it's vital to kind of figure out before you start writing. But however, maybe she does find it interesting because there's a sexy cowboy on a horse riding across. I will say that most likely it's probably a four-wheeler nowadays, but still, he can have this hat on and she can be a little enamored of that. But this is also where you involve some senses too, like what do cows smell like or the country? I can tell you as a country girl or growing up in a small town, not everything smells like wildflowers and cloudless skies and daisies. It's a lot of skunk and cow money. And then also like rainy dirt, which actually I love the smell of petrichor, which is what rain is. That smell is called petrichor, and that's one of my favorite smells. But the country does have some other smells that are not so great. Add it in, especially if you're writing a rom-com. How good is that? Certainly. Okay, so the third way to show setting is through an emotional moment. Involve your character. What connects your character to this place? Do they love it? Do they hate it? Have they been there before? Intricate details, number four. So, like tiny pinpoint descriptions are great. Like if she's at her grandparents' bed and breakfast, they've both passed, and there are tiny chips of paint. And she remembers back to when her grandparents like argued about this color of paint that they were going to put on the bed and breakfast. That is a moment to take you into that character. And some other ones, like ants that are carrying a small piece of watermelon, making the hero feel like a giant. A faint dog barking out in the world, making the woman feel lonely because it sounds lonely. So, how do your characters empathize with these? Another one, number five, time period or time frames, historical, 80s, big hair and neon. That's when I grew up. That was my era. Number six, interactions with surroundings. Is the hero in the barn scooping hay? Is he in a bakery, hot and cramped? Is she on a job site where every other worker is male, but they're about to find out that she's the boss? You get the idea that making a setting interesting really helps to solidify the scene. Give readers questions. What's wrong with the dog? Who dropped the piece of watermelon? Why did they ever have hair that big in the 80s? I don't know why. It was a blast, but there are regrets for every era, and I am positive of that. All right, so moving on. Tension. Tension is one of my favorite parts to write in a romance because it's that um like magnets. You know, you get them close together and then you can push them apart, especially if you have them flipped around, and they go, ooh, that's always fun. But this is where we start to give characters interaction. So we'll learn about plotting so you can know what level of tension goes where in the fourth session, which is on its Thursday, April 25th. But for now, this is what you need to know. The types of tension to apply to a scene. Opposing goals. She wants to use property for a park. He wants to build a high-rise apartment building on that piece of property. Opposing goals. Stakes. What do the characters have to lose? Is there something in the scene that could be at risk, like permits to build? A memory from their childhood comes back. What can you make happen that causes the character to be forced to react? And then how are they going to react? Time. Does it have to happen in an hour, in a half an hour, in 5 minutes? Putting a time constraint on a scene can make it have fantastic tension. Ebb and flow. So can you build tension, like I talked about, and then pull it back? So the permit she needs isn't approved, but only because she needs to sign it. She forgot. So she has to go down to the county office, and that's where she meets our hero. Number five, keep the reader asking questions. Like I said, this is also about tension. This is about leaving some open circles, and we're going to talk about that coming up soon. Like, what if they don't get XYZ to happen? What will happen? Number 6, repeat the conflicts that you set up in your goals, motivations, and conflicts. Remind the reader what is blocking their path. We have to keep that in front of the reader. Number 7, secondary sources of tension can be things that are on the outside, like animals. Skunks in a bakery is never good. People is our nosy neighbor who can't believe that the female character is having a man sleeping in her guest cottage. Oh my. Or problems like her closet has a leak. It's small, but maybe the guy in the guest cottage can help fix it. Or maybe he just stands there and watches while she does. And number 8, timeline. This is more often used in thrillers and romantic suspense, like a ransom note. You have 24 hours to deliver $1 trillion to the South Pier, or you'll never see your favorite pair of shoes ever again. Probably less romance oriented, but it could be that she has to, in a romance, she has to have a fiance in 72 hours. We've seen that. So fake fiance kind of goes along with timeline, certainly. Okay, that's tension. Don't skip on the tension. It's one of the biggest reasons that readers will stop reading a romance. It just feels flat. Okay. So up next, we're going to talk about internal and spoken dialogue. Actually, we're going to explore that topic in depth next week, because I think that dialogue, whether it be internal, like thoughts and feelings, or spoken, is so important. So we're going to move on. Number 11 is circles. So more accurately, we're going to call them unfinished circles. So I suggest using this technique that I developed at least twice in a story, once from the main character or the first main character's viewpoint, and once from the second main character's viewpoint. As many times in a story, for that many times in a story, so 2. And I'm going to use You've Got Mail, because you know that I love that movie, as an example. And one character will tell, when we're using circles, one character is going to tell the other character, or the other character learns something about the person, and the other character will fulfill the want or desire. Okay, so let me give you an example. In UGM, You've Got Mail, Kathleen Kelly lets it slip to Joe Fox that she loves daisies. I mean, who doesn't? So when he's trying to woo her, she's sick, and he brings her daisies to make her happy, to make her feel better. Now the reader may have forgotten that she said, "Don't you think daisies are the happiest flower?" But he hasn't. And when it happens, it's like magic. It's so special. Other examples I can give you. Maybe she's looking for a special cheese at a farmer's market. He goes out of his way to find it and brings it to dinner at her house. It's like that little gesture. It's like a little moment where readers can say, he was listening, or she was listening too, if it's something he liked the cheese, and so she brings it over to his place. Hope you get the idea there. We're going to move on to repetition moments. So this is where the two main characters both comment on something to cement an outside connection. These don't have to be big, I promise you. Like, they both hate pickles. They're both allergic to cats. They both love dogs. So with the pickles version, say they're both in line at a New York deli, and one of the main characters, she says, "No pickles. I don't like pickles." And the guy behind her says, "You don't like pickles? You hate pickles? I hate pickles." See how that works? It can be an intro to your scene. It can be a builder for your characterization. Lots of many times repetition moments are a character builder. We can also use it like bigger instead of like small pickles. She's talking to her friend about going to a hockey match. And when she gets back to the city, maybe she is traveling, or she's seeing her parents, let's say. The hero and heroine are at the hero's house, and he has hockey on TV. He's never been to a match, but he always wanted to go, so she invites him along. It's that moment where they can bond over something. It might seem innocuous, and but they mean something to a reader. It's a moment of perfect bliss, and they all want that. So go forth, write circles, repetition moments. Next, we have character development. We kind of talked about this last week with the GMC, goals, motivation, conflict. What we need to think about now is the arc of a character, okay? So where are they starting? What's their starting point? Where are they ending? And how can you get them there? What are going to be the steps? So changing a character makes them relatable to readers because we all make choices with consequences, and those choices often change us. How will a character change in this scene? If they will, how will a reader feel about them in this scene? All right, emotions are next. So when we're developing the scene, we need to think about how our characters will feel and how they'll emote those feelings in body language during their moment in the spotlight. That's where the body language sheet comes in handy. And I'm going to go on ahead and share that with you right here. I'll move it up a little on my screen so I can see it. So I'm going to be giving this to you. I will put the link for the Dropbox into chat. And those of you who are listening to this on YouTube, you are welcome to contact me, Julie@lastchapterpress.com, and I will send it to you. So this is something that is kind of an extra that I've given to my Writing Sweet Romance course, but I am going to give it to you because I think it is fantastic information. So let me move this out of the way just a bit, reorganize. All right. Okay, so this basically tells a writer what a movement of the body might equate to in meaning. So a lot of studies have been done on when we do something with body language, what does it mean? And they've come down to some like repetitive meanings of our body language. And that's where we are at here. So this has been collected over a long time. I mean, you can see page 3 of 22. That's a lot of information there. So like blinking frequently actually means excitement or pleasure. So a normal human blink rate is between 6 and 20 times a minute, depending on the expert. Significantly more than this is a sign of excitement or pleasure. Blinking rate can increase up to 100 times a minute. And this is not a reliable sign of lying. And I kind of like that they add what it isn't as well as what it could be. So let's look at eyes. So for instance, widening eyes can mean interest, appeal, and invitation. And then also rubbing eyes, like, when you go, oh, kind of thing, disbelief, upset, or tiredness. Think about like actors, especially on sitcoms, because they over exaggerate their body movements so that way we can tell how they're actually feeling. It's a show versus a tell. They're showing us how they feel instead of saying, my goodness, I am just so upset. They're like, no, this is not happening, kind of thing. They're rubbing their eyes, indicating disbelief, as if checking the vision, or upset, which relates to they're trying to stop crying. I don't want to cry. Boredom could be, and it's not necessarily a need for sleep with this rubbing of the eyes. It has a deeper meaning. So that's what we need to use for this. All right. I'm not going to go through this whole entire thing because this is just a lot of information to take in. But I'll tell you what, mouth, it is organized by body part. So you can take a look take a look at that, okay? All right, I'm gonna stop that share and go back to our original. Right there. We took a look at that. All right, we're moving on. We're almost to the end. I think there's 5 more sheets. So let's talk about sensory details. So this is your 5 senses. This is your hearing, sight, touch, sound, taste, and smell. So hearing, you can employ it to get on your reader's nerves, to alarm them or relax, like bang. Oh, did you wake up? Sight, color is a good example. By using color, you can paint vibrant images in your reader's mind. So think, okay, in my scene, I want her to wear a red dress because I want the little old ladies, they're in this small town, to go, oh, she's wearing a red dress. Does that have some meaning? I don't know, but it could be maybe scandalous. It could be like the little old ladies are jealous kind of thing. But color is a good example of a sensory detail that we associate with some type of feeling. Touch. You can use touch especially well to describe the nature of objects or people. So like silky smooth feeling of a summer dress, like really light cotton, soft. Or the coarseness of grandpa's beard. It's gray, raspy, which I'd never thought that raspy could be a word to describe a beard. But when I went out there, that was a description of beard, and I was like, that's so good, so good. It also raspy kind of makes me think of curly and kinky too. Taste. Experiencing something with the tongue is a very intimate act. And in romance, we know this. It's a personal moment that goes deep into the private sphere of the person. So tasting something like even eating, when you're writing a scene that has a fantastic dessert in it, like even a cheesecake, how silky it is. Okay, now I'm talking about food again. I know everybody's gonna laugh because for some reason I can't get away with not talking about food. But say a cherry cheesecake. It has those nice round plump red cherries on top, and then like that sauce that falls over the edge, and then that cheesecake that's so creamy, that kind of um graham crackery crunch of the crust. Yep, I'm gonna have to go get some cheesecake, that's for sure. All right, smell is the last one. When you think about it, smell is kind of an animalistic sense because it's rooted in making sure that we are safe, that something is either good or it's bad. It's a base instinct. So if we smell something, fire, smoke, we know our fight or flight kicks in because we know that's not good. We need to do something. However, if we smell wildflowers, we are like uplifted. It's softer. It's got an emotional reaction that is much more happy, joyous, all of that. So one tip I always tell my coaching clients is to go back and look over your writing of your chapters, chapter by chapter, and make sure you've included all 5 senses because it will deepen your romance like nothing else. Readers will be like, I was immersed in this. I felt like I was inside of the story. All right, number 16. I'm gonna take a drink. Thirsty. All right, 16 is action. So action obviously is almost an essential to writing a scene because we're not actually talking about shooting guns or people running from chaos. We're talking movement. So here are some tips and hints that I've developed that I want to share with you. First, actions don't have to be over the top to be effective. Not not everyone needs to call on the phone when there's something happening, or to stop by and visit, or to find out about a surprise. You want the action to be centered around the character that you're writing about in that scene. Have it happen to them. Don't have it on an exterior unless it's the end of the chapter and you're leading into the other person's POV. Number two, actions. I'm going to turn my light on back there. Actions can reveal a character's capacity to deal with problems and can definitely affect future events in the story. Three, actions often keep the pace moving forward. It helps you to know what your scene, what action's going to be in your scene. It helps you to avoid what we call a saggy middle. So this is basically where nothing is happening. We say that it's like we send our characters out into the forest and they just start marching around. They're not actually doing anything. Nothing is really happening to them. The conflict has either been forgotten or it's kind of lost, or even it could have been resolved already, and maybe the end of the story should have happened a long time ago. But neither of those things should happen in a good romance story. Number four, when writing what action will be in a scene, allow your characters to make decisions and don't allow them to wallow in questions. Why, what should I do? Where should I go? Who should I be? No, let them make a decision. Where should I go? I'm going to go to the restaurant. Who should I be? I'm going to be a doctor. I'm applying today. What am I going to do tomorrow? I'm going to go running in the morning. So make decisions. I will say a little angst is good because what it does is it heightens tension. But a lot of angst, which is all that questioning and that woe is me and oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened, that type of stuff, it can become really, really taxing on a reader. It just overwhelms them because it's constantly having them think about the bad part, not the good parts. We want that ebb and flow, remember? Good and bad. All right. The next one, number five, the last one, balance action with a slower pace to give readers a chance to relax before your next upheaval. So say you've had in a chapter, and I'm coming up with this off the top of my head, in a chapter, she has rolled her car into a ditch, okay? And he has come along and saved her from this. In the next chapter, I would not have his car rolling off the ditch. It's just, you need to give the reader a chance to absorb what just happened to the character. And then you can go on ahead and like say in a couple of chapters, it's a snowstorm. So she has to stay with him no matter what. So something bad has happened again, or it's just more action, I guess we should say. It's not necessarily bad. All right, number 17 of writing a scene. Sex scenes. So we're normally this doesn't happen in the beginning, although it could. I have written a story like that, and it was pretty well received, but it was not as authentic of a journey for the couple as a normal journey. We'll talk about that with plotting. So in every story, there's a culmination of stages of intimacy. And as you can see over here, it's 12 stages and it goes from eye to body, eye to eye, voice to voice, hand to hand. So, you know, that light touch, touching of the arm can also be included in that. Arm to shoulder or upper back, arm or hand to waist or middle back, and then mouth to mouth, hand to head or face. Number 9, hand to body, then mouth to breast, hand to genitals, and then genitals to genitals. So what I'm going to say is if you take somebody from eye contact with each other to hand to body, readers get uncomfortable because it kind of feels a little skeezy. It feels like they're moving too fast. Now, I write Insta-Love where they happen in less than 100 pages. So it goes pretty fast, the relationship, but I still take them through all 12 steps because if I don't, the reader's going to say, wow, that happened really fast. So, like I said, I wrote one that had it in the beginning, but it basically was a prologue kind of style where they were teenagers, late teens, of course, they were of consenting age, where they were having sex, and then we picked them back up as adults. So it was kind of a little bit different that way. As soon as you know the rules or you know these tips, you can break them because that's what writing is all about. It's kind of like you're creating a sundae and you have the ice cream here, but what are you going to put on top of it? That's what all of these scene little tips and tricks that I'm showing you and details are. These are all of the toppings on top of the scene. All right. So also, I want to say that you can write a sweet romance and it would be up to hand to head or face. You would just leave off all of these. There would be no hand to body and number 10, 11, 12. So those would just be there. A sweet romance is definitely, there's no sex for bonding the couple. So it's more about emotions. So their bonding is usually like, um, very an emotional journey versus a sexual journey. So, number 18, conflict. So, we talked about this last week. What struggles will infuse the scene with tension and emotion, and what will this struggle accomplish? So, think of baby steps to solving the conflict. It shouldn't be something that gets solved right away because then the readers will have no reason for sticking around for the rest of the book. Make it something hefty enough that it can last through 15, 20, 30 chapters. So it's something big. It's we're almost there to writing a story, you realize. We just have the pieces of the puzzle now. And the last piece of the puzzle for writing a scene is the ending of the scene. So there are 6 possible ways, although there are probably a myriad of others, is what I'd like to point out, of how you can end a scene. The beginning of a scene, definitely important because you want to grab that reader and get their attention immediately. However, the ending of a scene is probably more important. It will determine if the reader keeps on reading. So that's very important, right? These are 6 ways that I find best represent how to end a scene, although there are probably a myriad others, like I said. Surprise! Something new and exciting happens at the end of the scene, and it'll be explored in the next chapter or next scene. Number 2, possible consequences. So they're making a choice, but it might have multiple potential outcomes. And some of those outcomes could be pretty bad for the character. So keep that in mind. Maybe they're getting into a fight. That could be bad for them because they could lose their job. They could get injured, lots of things. Suspenseful action. One person is hanging on the edge of a cliff by their fingernails. What will happen next? Number 4, a hint of what is to come. So a text comes in on the hero's phone. He rolls his eyes, seeing who it is. That's it. That's the end of the chapter, right? That's the end of the scene. The reader is going to want to know who is it on the other end of that text. The reader will want to know. Number 5, tension of arrivals or departures. So the hero stomps in. I want to talk to whoever's in charge. That right there, you're like, who is this guy? Who is this person who thinks that they need to just come in unannounced? Number 6, a consequence of an earlier action. This can also be considered a circle as well. Someone is reaping the consequences of their action. They're finding out what has happened to their choice, what is going to happen to them. Okay. Whew, that was 45 minutes. That's awesome. So, how do you feel? Are you excited to get started writing? You probably want to wait for the next couple of sessions before you dig into writing a book. Next week, we'll talk about dialogue and sex scenes. Then after that, we'll go into plotting. And I know that not everyone is a plotter, believe me. But figuring out everything in the beginning, or at least some, having an idea of where you want your story to go, it will help you, I promise. I mean, I don't drive into New York City without GPS. Think of outlining as the same thing. It's your GPS of your story. All right. So we're going to be having more sessions. I told you. The next one will be on Sunday. So it's only 6 days away. On April 14th at 7 p.m. Central Time. Zoom link in the next LCP newsletter. So make sure you're signed up for that at our website. And then also I want to remind you that we are having a writing contest for romance, and we'd love to have you join. You can find more information about that at our website at lastchapterpress.com. There's a $300 top prize for each a steamy story and a sweet story. So there's also lots of other fun prizes like Last Chapter Press merch, like these beautiful mugs right here. Oh, I know that's backwards, but there you go. So we're going to give your story a royal treatment if you go on ahead and submit to the contest. But that is everything for tonight. Thank you for joining me, and happy reading and happy writing. All right, take care. Bye.